Hey you guys, so I wanted to come on here just to give you guys an update on how this first IUI cycle has been thus far, in addition to, I guess, just some rant things that have just taken place with this new facility that I've been dealing with. So I left you guys off with when I had my HSG ultrasound or x-ray test done, where they discovered that both of my tubes were blocked. So the doctor just recommended for me to come back the next day for him to attempt to try to make my tubes patent, and also gave me some medication just to try to help me relax me and all that jazz before the procedure. So we did that, went back, I took the medicine prior. It made me feel maybe like a smidgen less anxious, but I don't really think it necessarily decreased pain a whole lot. This time around, he went ahead and when he got the catheter in and inserted the dye, I don't think he had put as much dye in. So then when he went to thread the wire in through that catheter that they try to feed through your fallopian tubes to then make sure that they can inject the dye where it'll flow through the tube and come out the end across, over your ovary into your abdomen pretty much. They did that, and I was pretty much just experiencing pinching sensations. It wasn't anything, nowhere as near the torture as it was the day before. So he was able to get my right tube completely open. The left side, it was like he was able to get the wire threaded about, I want to say 75% of the way. But then even when he tried to inject the dye, it really wasn't like flowing through like it needed to. Now, mind you, I told you, I've mentioned before that I've had 3 chemical pregnancies before all of this has taken place. So I guess kind of, him and mine, both of our assumption is probably that, one of those tubes had to be patent enough for, obviously, for sperm to flow through it and fertilize an egg. And then maybe the egg was just attaching somewhere where it was releasing a small amount of HCG in order for me to be getting positive pregnancy tests. And then for whatever reason, it still could be related to, in addition to my egg quality issues, just the embryo just didn't thrive for both of those reasons, which I'm kind of glad that, it didn't lead to actual ectopics that I, would have had to have, removed or taken care of just to cause further issue, scar damage and that, sort of thing. So I wanted to go back. Forgive me for looking down because I have some numbers and stuff, and notes in front of me. I also wanted to tell you guys that when I went to this new RE, I went at the end of one of my period cycles. So it was like cycle day 27, 28. And then he wanted me to come back to start an IUI, then to come back day 3 to do blood work, ultrasound, and all that. Well, so when I went back on my day 3, they saw 4 antral follicles, which was good because prior to that he could only see just the 3 on my left ovary. So they saw 2 on each side. They also they drew blood work that day. And so some of the levels that actually came back from that day, my AMH finally resulted back. It was a 0.67, which is barely a decrease at all from my prior one a year ago, which is kind of good, even though that's a bad AMH because I'm only 32. I mean, that's really low for somebody my age. So my AMH was a 0.67, and it was only 0.72 about a year ago. My antral follicle count was 4, as I told you. My E2 level was 49, and my FSH was 8.1. Which is a little bit of an increase because prior to that, the last time I had ever had it checked was again last year, and it was 8.2 prior, so it's 9.1 this time. And my TSH that day was 3.5 because it was much higher than that. My TSH was before, like it was like I want to say 5 something or what have you. So yes, I wanted to give you guys that. So then in addition to that, we had, with this IUI, we were planning to do actual insemination. Well, then the night before, not the night before, but the day before, we were to do the insemination, the clinic had called just to remind me to that our insurance didn't actually cover the insemination, and that it was going to cost like $450 to do the insemination. Well, for me, I wasn't too keen on wanting to pay $450 to have some, sperm centrifuged through, a machine and sprayed in me. Being that we've gotten my husband's semen analysis in a lot better shape than what it was almost a year ago. I was comfortable with not being too pressed with actually having to do the insemination, and we could just do timed intercourse. Well, I told her that. I was like, well, we'll probably just cancel that appointment or whatever. And she's like, okay, fine. Just give me a call back. Let me know for sure. So I wanted to double check with my husband. But anyway, called back, and it was maybe not even like 10 minutes later when I called back. The secretary pretty much answers the phone, and, I just told her, my name and my premise for calling. I'm saying, hey, I want to cancel my insemination appointment or whatever, but I need somebody, whatever to be able to let me know, what my next step is from here. Because my previous appointment, the RE, when I asked him about at what point we'll be looking into my progesterone levels and all that jazz, and adding any progesterone support just in case, he stated that usually they do that like the week after the insemination or the week after ovulation, and that I could anticipate coming back for us to work through that. Well, the secretary answered the phone. I told her why I was calling, and then she took it upon herself, I guess, to think she was going to be able to answer my question. And so then the first thing she says, oh, well, just give us a call back when you're ready to move forward. I'm like, what? I'm like, no. I said, let me be more specific about what I'm saying here. And so then I told her that I'm already in an IUI cycle. I'm just canceling the insemination part, yada, yada. So she's like, oh, okay, so you're just going to do timed intercourse? She's like, yeah, well, just go ahead and do that, and then call us back if you get a positive pregnancy test or with the start of your next cycle. By then, I was like, this lady, had me livid. It was taking everything in me to just not, go off on her. And I'm like, why is this woman even attempting to answer these questions? So then I snarkily then had to tell her, look, we're not new to this infertility thing. I've done IVF before. Yes, this is my first IUI, but honey, that is not how IUIs go, And I was like, there's things in between here that we need to check on and be sure of before we move on and just say, oh, just wait for your next period to start. Well, anyway, so then by then she wanted to put me on hold to see if she could find someone. And then she called back and said that, they weren't available or whatever. They called me back. And mind you, this was really the day I was scheduled to give myself the trigger shot. So so we got off the phone. I was just kind of done. And in addition to just other things that have been going on with the flow of the office and such, I've been at the point where I'm done with this office. They're just things that just rub me the wrong way. And I'll even go back to one thing. For some people, this could be nitpicky, but again, because I work in healthcare, to me, this isn't nitpicky. Things like this worry me. So the day when I had my HSG done, when the RE came into the room, before the start of the procedure and all that, he was talking, and once he had initially put the dye in my uterus and stuff, he's like, I'm in writhing pain, could pass out on the x-ray table. That's how much pain I was in. And he's trying to ask me all these questions, or whatever. You can see that I'm trying to console myself and compose myself from this pain, and you're trying to essentially interrogate me and ask me more medical history. And then he even went too far and says, oh, well, he says, you had a C-section, right? And I'm like, dude, honey, I haven't even got to that point yet. Can I freaking get pregnant and get to the point where I'm, full, in my 8th, 9th month to be able to deliver a child? No, I don't have any children. I said, no, I've never had a C-section. I I'm the one that had the cervical ectopic. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, that right there rubbed me the wrong way, too. I mean, that's just like, you know, y'all go to the doctor or go to have a surgery, and the surgeon walks in the room and says, oh, yeah, so we're here today to amputate that left leg. And then you're like, no, you're supposed to be removing my appendix. And then they're like, oh, yeah. No, like, you need to be able to review your patient's chart to know what situation and who you're dealing with so that you have a mental game plan in your head when you go in to talk with your patient, because things like that will rub me the wrong way. But so aside from that, like I said, there's been a bunch of things that have just gotten on my nerves. You know, they'll say, oh, they'll call me back and let me know when these blood results come back, yada, yada, this, that, and the third. Or even just when I just called to see if my AMH level had come back, you know, the first question she asked me, she's like, oh, when did you have it drawn? Honey, why does that matter? I've given you my name. I'll give you my name and date of birth. How about you just look in the computer under my name and see what recent labs have come back? And not only to mention that, with the blood work, again with this IUI cycle, like I said, things just haven't gone like they should. My, as I told you, my E2 level was last drawn on cycle day 3, and that's it. They haven't even drawn blood since then to see that my levels have risen appropriately, and that, you know, I've gotten good, more, you know, response and all that jazz, you know, to be able to even trigger. My last follicle scan was only cycle day 10, and he just pretty much counted out on his fingers, estimating that, you know, like I was going to be ready to trigger in like another 4 days. But with me, and the way I think about it, being that I have a low MH and I have a history of being a poor responder, especially to stems, because I've done IVF before, obviously that means that my follicles don't grow and react to medicine on this standard typical scale that other people's do. So what if you're anticipating that my follicles will grow 2 millimeters each day? What if they only grow 1 each day? They were only at 12 and 13 on cycle day 10. A lot of other people are at like 16 by that day sometimes. So, you know, it wasn't even bothered to even check me closer to trigger time to ensure that those follicles are really mature. Maybe I should have put off, you know, taking the trigger another, you know, in another day or so later to just give my body a little more time. Again, to add to that, even on cycle day 12 or 13, I decided to go ahead and take an OPK. And it was kind of dark. It made me feel like, well, looking at it, I'll probably have a positive one the following day. But actually, they only got lighter. So I'm thinking that I probably missed my surge, and that I could have very well have ovulated something on my own even before I was planning to take the trigger. I was back and forth deciding whether or not I should even take the trigger shot, just with how this whole cycle for me just has been so just erratic and just foolishness. Like, you know, and it's really such a simple process. Well, much more simple than, say, going through an IVF cycle. So I don't know, but I went ahead and took the trigger shot anyway as scheduled that evening. And then from here, I'm kind of just in limbo. Like, all I really need to do now is just have blood work drawn to kind of confirm ovulation, and also, you know, just see where my progesterone level is. And because I'm accustomed to doing the progesterone support 3 or 4 days DPO, but this physician is talking about they do it like a week after you ovulate. Anyway, I know people do stuff different all the time, but anyway, those are just some of my frustrations, and just to kind of give you guys a little rundown update of what's really transpired since the last time that we talked. So you guys make sure that you subscribe and comment down below for your experiences, like I said, with IUI, and, you know, any other suggestions that you may have for me, you know, moving forward from here. I've already made a couple appointments with new clinics for future cycles, you know, because I already see that this place is not the well-oiled machine that I need it to be for my type A personality. So again, thank you guys for watching. I know this video is a little long, but make sure, like I said, to subscribe so you can keep up with me in this chaos that we call infertility.